When I asked for a copy of this game, I was far from imagining that they would send it to me. Wait, that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that I expected a good game. I did not expect it to be such a masterpiece. For most of the time, I thought it would be a 12 out of 10. Yes, it's really that good. Well guys, since you are here, why not a little small help like a comment, a like, or even a subscription? I would really appreciate it. Thank you so much. The Messenger is, in my opinion, an action platformer that at one point turns into a Metroidvania, although its strong point is the platform component. The Earth went through a cataclysm, being flooded and only leaving an island. At one point, this island was attacked by an army of devils who forced what remains of mankind to obscurantism just to be able to survive. His last hope is a scroll that must be carried by a messenger. Everything is in 2D, with graphics mostly in 8-bit style, which at one point interleaves with precise changes to 16-bit. This pixel art is not as detailed as in Old Boy, for example, but it does not try to be. It does try to emulate the 90s from start to finish. The sound is fabulous, also accompanying the change between 8 and 16 bits, with songs composed to reminisce to old games. It also has other delicious details like changing the pitch when you are underwater. It's just so precious. The game mechanics itself are flawless. It jumps to the eye that the similarity with games like Ninja Gaiden or Shinobi. Unfortunately, the devs were not being tempted to put this game on an unattainable difficulty level for a casual player like me. Do not get me wrong, the game is quite difficult, but fair. We never end up by saying that we died due to a glitch or for problems with the controls. We always realize where we failed, where we went wrong, but even being a game that prides itself on immense deaths, in my case around 400, it still gives some space to play rough, making some mistakes purposely in order to greatly simplify some of the platforming, a more difficult section for instance. But then we cannot see the best of this game. When we can reconcile the various abilities of our hero, especially the Cloud Step, which is the ability to have a second jump after attacking an enemy or item, we can catch the sublime beauty of this game. Reconciling 2 or 3 skills to beat a section is almost like moving poetry, and it always leaves us with a smile on our face. Of course, it also leaves us with some anger when we are struggling to pass a certain area, but the checkpoints are generous, and most of the time they are cleverly placed to give us time and space to die without much suffering in the most difficult parts. Dying also has this twist, because we are saved in extremis by a winged demon that takes us some coins to compensate the work afterwards. It is well worth it, not only because it gives us endless lives, but it is always accompanied by a sarcastic phrase to enjoy with our performance. It seems to be somewhat repetitive because for those who die as often as I do, we quickly pick up all the sentences. I spoke about the coins, so I have to talk about the store and its rather sarcastic shopkeeper. I was always looking for an entrance to the store. Most of the time, not even to buy anything, but just to talk to him, to check if he had another sarcastic story to tell me, or to check if I could see what was in the closet. It was always a joy. And what can we buy? During most of the time we can upgrade our skills by following a skill tree. The most important items are relatively cheap. And at the end of the game you'll have some coins that left over and no longer have use to give to them. Back to the storyline of the game to introduce new game concepts. I have to say that the main story is quite well framed, very well written and told, very enjoying. All its cliches and inspirations are set with tons of humor. I take them my hat, but this same story leads to what I consider the most annoying moment of the game. The moment it passes from a perfect platformer game to a Metroidvania loaded with a not very enjoyable backtrack, with sporadic parts already tending to be boring. What counts is that this is a short moment for a game that took me about 20 hours to complete. Even so, I would have avoided it because it cuts a lot of the pace of it. Especially being such a good game, playing the same levels without the fun of fighting the bosses that we had already defeated was not something that motivated me. I would have probably stopped at this point if the story was not being so well told and if I did not have to do this analysis. Near the end of the game, they begin to give us tips that point out to potentially replay value. I do not feel like playing it again, but the completionists will have a lot to do with it, as there are still a lot of items that I left unfinished and that led me to new elements in the game. And now there's even new game modes and new difficulties. In a nutshell, the game was being perfect, but at one point it seems that they tried too hard to increase its complexity without anyone asking for it. This sensation only disappeared when the game returned to the initial rhythm, with the new areas and new puzzles. The Messenger turns out to be the proof that it is much easier to find a surprise, a new mechanic or geniusness where we least expect. Highly recommended. See you next time, guys. Bye!